Hello, Randy.
Yes.
I've got us set up to record so you could give a report of what's going on. You're in Statesville, and let them know your ham radio call sign.
Kilo Oscar 4, Charlie Whiskey Charlie, or in plain English, that's KO4CWC.
Give us an update on what you've heard. I just want to bring attention to ham radio, still the most robust, stable communication system. They've lost cell phone, they've lost power, they've lost emergency service towers, but ham radio's still there, trucking along.
Yes, it is. And as an example of that, Asheville, North Carolina is completely isolated from the rest of the world right now because every road has some sort of damage or flooding on it. And the only way to do anything about it is to get in there by air or simply use a satellite hookup or a ham radio hookup to get your messages out. North Carolina Emergency Management has already begun a strategy of sending in products by air until things can clear up a bit, and then they'll start sending trucks in. But other than that, it's ham radio all the way. And the latest setup I've got here is for emergencies in Boone, North Carolina. They have a repeater set up on 147360, and that's for mountain-related emergencies. And for welfare checks, we have 145190, which is the Mount Mitchell repeater, with the call sign of Whiskey 4 Hotel Tango Papa. That's W4HTP. I have on here on my Facebook page Linda King Jackson, who she does a page for her amateur radio group, and she's requesting a welfare check of Jerry Michael Jackson, 37 of Homestead Ridge Road in Weaverville. Her call sign is Kilo Quebec 4 MZZ, and I don't know if she requested it, but I have not seen any evidence of that message being relayed or anything like that yet.
Excellent. Well, I'll put links, if you'll, through Facebook, send me the links you have, because you've got power back on, and we'll put them there. Kind of explain to people how ham radio's doing their part to help out. And again, I want to reiterate for any of our legislators watching or media that it's important they keep that connection to the volunteer citizens of amateur radio. So in an emergency, when these real complex systems like cell phone and the system they use for emergency management go down, ham radio, and I'll bring one. I'm holding up one of this is my simple ICOM radio, very simple. And then this is a less expensive one as well. With that and potentially a solar panel that will charge it, you've got a very robust communication system in the time of emergency.
Right. And this is another example. I kept saying it because I keep thinking of, like, with computers and the damage hackers can do and this, that, and the other thing to disrupt communications. But there are so many different ways that ham radio with a repeater from a variety of locations can be helpful, and it helps you get around all these physical problems. Like, for example, I-40 out here just beyond my apartment is where they've closed the western lane to traffic. They don't want anybody just bebopping up into the mountains and become an extra statistic. Local traffic only is allowed through there, and that goes all the way over to somewhere around Knoxville, Tennessee. The mountain passes are normally safe, but not right now, because parts of the interstate looks like Godzilla took a bite out of the interstate up there. I know it was a lot of wind and rain erosion, and it's too dangerous to be up there right now.
The other thing is a lot of emergency service have kind of drifted away from realizing this as a resource, and now they're calling on it. So, I say this is a multi-tier wake-up call that, first of all, ham operators need to keep communicating to legislators and others the value of what we have to offer, because our license basically says we're here to help in an emergency, and most people who go through the hoops to get it are glad to help out. The other thing is understanding this idea, if anyone doesn't know, of something called a repeater. Well, that would be how you get your signal out further, but we also, Randy, they're using simplex signals, which means it's point to point, and in the mountain, if someone just gets up higher, they can get a range almost like having a very high antenna.
Oh, very much so, and especially places like up there in Boone, where I saw King Street, which is like the main drag up there, if you will. It was like a river. It was inundated absolutely with water, and it had nowhere to go but down. And I went through this very similar thing in Vermont, in my home state, with Hurricane Irene. When you have topographic issues like mountains and valleys, the water gets channeled into certain places, and after a while it has like nowhere to go. The rivers just get all beat up. They can't handle any more water, but more water keeps coming anyway, and that ends up getting under roads, on top of roads, in people's houses. I even saw some houses in Nashville floating down what used to be, like one of the streets there, which is now one big river.
One of the things I hear is our local clubs, ham radio clubs, are finding ways to help out and get involved, and they're asking for people that could volunteer to get close to the area and set up systems for communication. So that's exciting to hear. I'm sure your local club, I think you said your American Legion group, stepping up and trying to find out how they can help as well. I invite people, if they're in ham radio, reach out to your local club, see if there's a way to help. If you have internet access for North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Amateur Radio Operator group on Facebook that we have, and then the regular nets. There'll be announcements on the nets. Those are scheduled time periods where we get together and talk and often practice communicating for emergencies. So, there's a lot of ways to get involved. And if people aren't familiar with ham radio and go, maybe I should learn something about this so I'm more prepared, I'll put links in there to learn more about it as well. I think this is such a critical thing. I know, Randy, you're stepping up to the plate already, Saul, and relaying information, sharing frequencies people can find out, and really trying to say, does anybody know of somebody in an area? And that's what ham operators do.
That's exactly what we do. And keeping in mind, too, that the Iredell Firewire over here is one shining example. They got their own command center over there with maps, radios, and basically one big situation room. And they've been also relaying messages coming off of Mount Mitchell. And again, those are welfare checks and things of this nature, but it keeps people from worrying, and it keeps people from looking for people who don't need to be looked for because they're okay.
The big thing people don't realize is just clean water. If you don't have water, you can't flush toilets. I mean, we can kind of do somewhat without power to some extent, but of course, if you don't have power, you can't charge the cell phones. If the cell phone towers are down, you can't communicate because cell phones can't work without a tower. Amateur radio, ham radios can work without a tower. They have a point-to-point capability, and just the fact that we can, as human beings, only go so long without clean water to drink. So any tips for people to learn more about how they can help in general?
Well, as of right now, you remember that you are allowed to listen if you don't have a license, and if you're into ham radio and would like to get, I encourage you at some point to take the tests and be licensed, but you can still listen. You can help out in that regard and take messages for people, as I bet they are inundated with messages, and they might need an extra hand writing information down, and that would be one way to help, that's for sure.
So for you, you're monitoring Mount Mitchell, right, and several others to see if there's anything you can do to help relay messages.
That's correct. Plus, making use of our own North Carolina Amateur Radio Operators page, we get some odd, or I guess stragglers or oddball requests sometimes for people who can't reach the repeater without some assistance. So this is another form of relay which we can do, and we can take advantage of it because we have the power here, and we might as well use it.
Absolutely. Well, Randy, thanks for speaking. Stay well. I just have to say, I remember visiting you and I said, is that a landline you have? And you said, I'm keeping it for emergency. That's why we're able to talk. You happen to keep a landline in your house, and you're just far enough from Raleigh to Statesville that we could probably have connected through repeater towers. But when you called, I contacted you and said, hey, let me know you're okay. And you called back. I said, we got to do a quick show and get this on the air. And again, I want to reiterate, ham operators, we need to keep communicating to our legislators of the importance of ham radio as a backup. This is an example of how the system fails, and we're here to volunteer and help and to embrace and make sure that there's support for it. As far as people who are thinking, what if this happened to me? Realize how fragile our infrastructure system is. We're so dependent on this stuff, and consider learning something about amateur radio. It's a beautiful hobby, great people. They'll give you a shirt off their back in an emergency and step forward. And I'm excited because even in my neighborhood, when a new neighbor comes, I say, see that antenna? In the event of an emergency, I'm going to do my best to help all of us here with ham radio.
Absolutely, and this is a great way, because if this doesn't prove its worth, nothing is ever going to. It's a way to, especially like Asheville, every point on the road, and every road for that matter, is flooded or in disrepair, and land travel is not possible, or as we said in the country, you can't get there from here. You can, but it has to be by air, and you have to do it very carefully for now.
Yeah, because the helicopters need a solid platform to even land, and there's many places that don't have them. It's not like you can just send in a bunch of choppers into a platform that's unstable with mud. So yeah, it's a huge issue. Randy, first of all, I want to tell people here that you're a veteran. Thanks for your service. I know you're stepping up. I just know you're a great example of what ham radio is all about. Keep relaying, and we'll stay in touch, and we'll all be finding ways we can help out. But thanks for joining me for this quick show to just let people know we're out here, we're doing our part to help, and we ask that the community make sure our legislators keep supporting amateur radio so it will be there for helping them one day.
Absolutely, and hopefully there's some operators who are in politics. That would be even better. Yeah, either way, that's a good thing to get into people's heads, that plan for stuff like this, and it won't be quite as bad. You know, everybody's going to suffer a little bit, but we can save lives just by being there for them, and being able to function. That's the biggest thing.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everybody. And again, I'm going to sign as KO4CFS, and Randy?
I'm KO4CWC.
We look forward to hearing you on the air if you're not on it. And I want to thank all the ham operators who are stepping up to the plate, finding ways to help in this emergency. And just remember, these are the common citizens that are out there, your neighbors and others. So be aware of it, and see a ham operator helping, thank them, as well as all our first responders that are really doing everything they can right now to make this place and save lives in this tragedy in Western North Carolina.